Hello, I'm Robin Vincent and welcome to summer. Welcome to the sound of children playing and welcome to the August edition of Molten Music Monthly. These things seem to come around far too often, I think, but in this month's episode we have two boutique instruments from Roland. Percussa create a super signal processor for eurorack. Patchrat will organise your studio for a price. Soundforge is still alive. Win yourself a Memory Moog. Get Armake in a virtual reality Ableton Live. Analogue Solutions go mad with Synthblocks. Sound machinery morph 4 synths into each other. PolyGAS is the best free VST synth ever. The Gristleizer will cause your Gristle to throb. The new Surface Pro does okay. And we'll have the latest update on my modular synthesis adventure. All this right here. I shot some video of some sort of blurry video on an Instagram account that appeared overnight, which seemed to show what looked absolutely like an SH-101, but in kind of a Roland Boutique form factor. I turned it into a GIF for gearnews.com and then it went completely viral and got shared everywhere and no one gave me the least bit of thanks. But it turns out that this blurry and annoying looped GIF of a blue smudge spearing across the screen was absolutely and completely true, and within a couple of weeks Roland had announced the SH-01a. It is a reissue, a recreation, a reworking of their classic SH-101 monophonic synthesizer. But this one has 4 voices. It's also really tiny, which is a shame. I mean, I think most people when you see it, certainly on video and in images, you don't really grasp exactly how small it is. But these boutique synths are weeny. Let me show you. Well, here you see I have a boutique right here. This is the Roland A01. They were giving these away on Thomann a few weeks ago. And it is actually really very small. I mean, how are you going to fit all those sliders and knobs and stuff on there? I don't know. I mean, with the A01, it's pretty good. So it's just got these 4 knobs and a little bit of a display. The dinky little keyboard is completely dinky and really, I think overall lets down the whole boutique range because it's a bit crappy. Anyway, so we have the SH-01a. It's of course analog modelling. It's not actual real analog, but it's going to sound flipping amazing. I mean, the plug-in already sounds fantastic, and this is going to be the hardware version of that with all the sliders and knobs and a display, the sequencer, all the things that you could ever want from an SH-101, except perhaps the mod grip, the grip handle thing so you could wear it around your neck. They don't yet have a boutique attachment like that, so you're just going to have to sort of deal with it as it is. But some of the demo videos I've seen, it's just brilliant. It sounds exactly how it's supposed to sound, but it has 4 voices. So it's a polysynth. That's amazing. And it sounds excellent. I mean, I know there's a lot of people that go, oh, well, it doesn't quite sound exactly the same because, you know, if you really hear the resonance, yeah, all right. But I think for most of us, it sounds pretty awesome. And for $339, rather than having to spend thousands of pounds on buying the real thing off eBay, you can get it for a couple £100, which, yeah, that's pretty darn good, I think. I had the good fortune to borrow one off a mate back in 1980s, something or other, and I thought it was really cool. He'd programmed the bass line from Level 42's Hot Water into it, which I thought was pretty funky, although at the time I actually preferred my DX100 because, you know, you could play chords and stuff. I was an idiot, obviously. So yeah, 808s, yeah, right, yeah, along with the SH-101 is an 808. Yeah, I'm kind of getting a bit bored of drum machines, 808 sounds. It's been around forever, but it's still hugely, massively sought over and successful, and it's finally Roland have released their own version of their own piece of kit, their famous TR808 as the TR-08. Clever, hey? Yeah, I mean, yeah, someone almost released a pair of trainers in the same colour as an 808 and everyone went crazy for it. So, you know, The TR-08 is going to be a massive success, no doubt. Again, it's in that weeny little boutique form, and all those knobs along the top are going to be tiny, a bit like the SE-02 is. Very, very tiny knobs. But that's the form factor, that's what they've put themselves into. It's probably a really great idea when they did the earlier range, because they slimmed down on the controls on the front. So you got this Jupiter 8, which is great, but it's only got a few controls on the front, whereas these are trying to be more authentic, and that's really now starting to creak and push that very small form factor. Oh well, good bunch of sounds though. Drum machine, pads and that. These switches on and off and tuning, great, awesome. Analog sounds, not entirely analog of course because it's analog modelling, but it will sound as near as damn it just like the real thing, unless you're one of those people who refuses to accept anything except the real thing. Then fine, go get a load of money and buy the real thing. The rest of us just have fun with these desktop synths and stuff. The Percussa stuff is fascinating and weird and sort of otherworldly and out of reach somehow. I mean, there's Synthor 8 system with the audio cubes and this weird digital console stuff. It's like from another planet. But then they've decided to take some of that and slap it into eurorack format, which is a lot more interesting because that means it will play with other stuff and we'll start to understand what it does, I suppose. And they went about it in a really cool way. They did some sort of 3D renders and some prototyping, and then took it onto forums and into the community and said, what do you think? Is this something that would be really good, or is it mad? And people went, yeah, really good, I think. And they changed it and they responded to the feedback and put it all into a sort of a simpler and more functional unit, which they've now dumped onto Kickstarter. They've called it the Super Signal Processor, which is interesting, although they do a terrible job really of explaining what it's all about. I mean, I really had to scratch my head, dig around inside it, go, what? It's a what? What is it? A what? But essentially what it is, it's a computer microprocessor, an ARM one, running a certain customized version of Linux with their own proprietary software that enables it essentially to be anything you like. So it has knob controls on there and buttons. It's got this lovely array of patch sockets and this gorgeous screen, and it can be whatever you want it to be. At the moment they're focusing really on it being a wavetable oscillator and modulator, so the processor itself is capable of running something like 8 oscillators, which then can be upscaled to 64 oscillators with unison mode and cloud, where it sort of replicates itself rapidly and creating these huge enormous sounds. So there's an enormous amount of processing power in there to do stuff, and it could also do regular eurorack stuff like modulation, LFOs, filters, all that kind of stuff in a digital processed computer DSP kind of way. Currently on Kickstarter they've hit their goal. They've got 30 people to invest $1,600 into it, which is quite awesome. But also they were asking for quite a modest amount, I think, in order to finish the production. But it's certainly a very interesting project. I mean, it certainly doesn't look right as far as eurorack, as far as my experience of eurorack goes. It's far too sleek, far too well designed. I mean, it would never fit into the chaos, mud and grit of my roast of eurorack. But for some people, I'm sure it's going to be awesome. Now here's a good idea. What with all this hardware knocking around, how do you ever remember what it was all set to the last time you opened the last project that you were working on the project before the one you were working on last? I mean, you know, getting to work with a felt tip pen and some masking tape and scribble down notes doesn't really make for a recallable system. Patchrat is an app that's designed to let you note down and record absolutely every single hardware setting in your studio. It does it by using sort of virtual GUIs like from a plugin, but these are of hardware, so it's not a plugin, it's just a picture, a graphic of every piece of hardware that they can find with movable knobs. So you search for it, dial it up, set all the knobs to what you want them to be, and then that is in your project file. So when you come back to the same project again, you can just look at Patchrat and see what all the settings were on all your hardware and put them back. You know, this is assuming that everything is manually done, analogically done, not recorded as MIDI patches into your sequencer, because that's obviously a far easier way to do it. But All our external hardware doesn't do that, doesn't respond to that. So this is for setting and remembering all of the controls on all your other hardware gear. You can also set up your wiring diagrams and signal flow, microphones, everything. The entire kick list of your entire project can be in here. I mean, obviously this could be a massive time saver for people who have enormous studios. And that's who I guess this is aimed at. Although that doesn't stop it being an interesting and good idea. Certainly for modular, I like the idea of being able to have a virtual version of my modular setup, which I can then note down patches on. However, the downfall is that this costs 300 bucks a year. A year. You know, you've got to keep paying them in order to keep using it or something. So really, yeah, it's for the big boys, which is a shame, but the rest of us, I guess we're just gonna have to make do with taking photos. Yay, SoundForge is not dead. I've been using SoundForge since version 4 back in the 1990s something or other when it was owned by Sonic Foundry. It's undoubtedly, hands down, the best audio editor on PC. Then it was bought by Sony and they sort of kept it going and then kind of dropped the ball a bit and then ignored it for a very long time. And Sony recently sold everything to Magix, along with things like Vegas Pro and Acid and such like. And there was a bit of a fear, at least I had a fear, that Magix were going to go, yeah, whatever. But they haven't. They've kept it going along with Vegas Pro as well. And they are releasing a new version of SoundForge Pro very soon. And they have just released the studio version, which is like the cut down version. And it's good. And it really brings me hope and joy for the future of SoundForge. Because especially now, as I understand it, Wavelab has now ceased any further development. So really, SoundForge, other than looking at something like Audacity, SoundForge is really the only serious wave editor out there. And I've used it for all sorts of things over the years, whether it's playlist editing or trimming stuff or mastering or editing samples, setting loop points, crossfading stuff together, putting together soundtracks, all sorts of reasons I've been using SoundForge. And its biggest problem is that every time I seem to run it, because it tends to be like 6 months between I use it, and every time I start it up, it trips over plugins, it sort of falls over itself, it's not sure what it's doing, and its lack of development is very, very frustrating. So it's great to see Magix taking it on. What they haven't done though, is they haven't particularly revitalized the GUI, which is kind of cool in a very retro XP kind of way, in that all the toolbars and the windows are just have this very old vintage Windows flavor to them, which I don't know, I guess we'll just see how that goes. But it will certainly remain familiar to old-time users. What it does have now though is a fully 64-bit architecture, VST3 support, and this new editing feature called slicing, which is where you make cuts and then you can actually edit the position of that later on. Whereas previously SoundForge was very much about cut and then it's cut, that's it. You're completely destructively destroying your WAV file. So that's nice, bringing that back in. The new Pro version should be out in about a month, but otherwise the studio version probably has everything in it that you could possibly ever need. The Moog Foundation have another raffle on, and this time around it's the MemoryMoog Plus that's on offer. This is a $10,000 synthesizer made in 1984 or something, I think. It's been lovingly looked after and serviced and is in top-notch condition, and it's the prize. All you need to do is buy a ticket. Tickets are $25 and all proceeds go to the Moog Foundation's historical and educational initiatives, which sounds like a pretty good deal to me. So it's a good cause, $25, worth a punt. The winner gets drawn out of the hat, or rather, I get drawn out of the hat on the 8th of September, and then all I've got to think about is how on earth I get it shipped over here. Here's some virtual reality madness guaranteed to make your arms ache. Some bloke has built a launchpad style controller for Ableton Live in virtual 3D space. You don your VR goggles and your motion controller stick things into your hands and immerse yourself in this crazy 3D world of block slapping and instrument making. I mean, you can pull these blocks out and sit them to one side and then start playing them like bongos. I think that's really cool. Or you can compartmentalize it into this is an instrument and this is triggering something else. You can trigger scenes, you can trigger loops, record, enable and start jazzing stuff about. I mean, it's exhausting to watch, let alone to do. I mean, it seems to be able to create kind of instantly groovy music videos, but you'd look a bit of an idiot in a live performance, I think, stumbling around with your helmet on. But I guess it's full body expressive music control, or is it just really a whole load of arm ache and you're better off with a mouse? I don't know. I mean, if you needed another reason to buy a virtual reality headset, then maybe this is it. Or if you wanted to do something else with your virtual reality headset rather than just watching porn and playing games, then maybe you want to give this a go. This works only on Steam and with the HTC Vive, which with headset and controllers is about 750 quid, which is a lot of money just to have a go at something. But I'm sure this time next year we'll all be doing it. I was going to say something about this last month, but I just ran out of time. But this month, we now have two. Analogue Solutions have started this range of products, these desktop effects that they are called in Synthblocks. The first one was called Mr. Hyde, which is a fantastic red, sort of a chemically induced filter. The second one is called Dr. Strangelove, and this is, what is it? Well, it's a nuclear, no it's not, it's a ring modulator, an echo. But it's resplendent in this yellow and this bomb thing on the front. I mean, they just look fantastic. They've got a great sense to them. I mean, these are gritty, dirty, exciting desktop boxes that we're going to sit around and just screw with your music. I think that's really exciting. I mean, if I wasn't going on this Eurorack journey, I think I'd very much like to do a desktop stuff, hardware journey. All these little boxes and people like Bastille and stuff, and the way you can sort of wire it all together with trails of cables and just have this blinking desk full of lights and noises and stuff. I mean, that's awesome. I mean, they're simple, they're straightforward, nice big fat knobs on the front, they look great, sound great. Awesome. Analogue Solutions, Synthblocks. I'm looking forward to many, many more of them. From New Kids Sound Machinery is a blend of 4 not quite classic synthesizers stuffed into a contact instrument. They take the Yamaha CS10, the Korg MS-20, which is a bit of a classic, the Kawai F100 and the Seal Cruise, is that how you pronounce it? I don't know. Anyway, they take these 4 synths, put it into this rather nice interface and allow you to blend them together. I mean, usually with contact instruments or other instruments, other synthesizers, people are concentrating on a single instrument. You take an instrument and you sample it or you model it and then you present it as an instrument. So what I like about this is the fact they've taken 4 instruments and have stuffed them together to allow you to balance, blend and tune them against each other. I think that's a really nice idea. I'm loving the interface, I like the style of it, it's only about 20 quid and some of the sounds coming off it are quite sublime. It's called the Morphologist, which doesn't seem quite right. So there doesn't seem to be any morphing going on, particularly more of a mixing of things, but who knows? It's a good first synth. I am often weirded out by granular synthesis. I don't know if I really understand it or know what to do with it, and invariably it all seems to sound a bit sort of grainy and digital and a bit the same. PolyGAS, on the other hand, seems to sort of lift the fog. I'm not quite sure why, whether I've had a breakthrough or part of my brain has been rewired or something, but playing with a synth, I suddenly kind of understood what was going on. I loaded a sample, I moved a few knobs sort of on purpose and intentionally could change the sound to something that I was actually after. I mean, maybe it's always been like that and I've just never noticed, but it just seemed to become very, very clear and interesting and usable and musical, all of those sort of things that you like to have in a virtual instrument. They've got some great reverb and delay in there, a very fierce filter, and this wonderful screen for editing the envelope for modulation. All the modulation is done in sort of envelope form, which is quite good, I like that. But best of all, it's completely free. So if you don't know what granular synthesis is about, or you don't care, or you just want something new and interesting and different way of approaching your sound design or your music, or whatever, it's free, it's PolyGAS, it's Russian, it's great, go get it and see what you think. Now, I'm not particularly familiar with the whole experimental industrial sound palette of throbbing Gristle. I know, it's social suicide to even admit that. But no, I'd never actually heard them before. However, they are famous for using a particular effects box that band member Chris Carter built from a design by Roy Gwynn that was taken from Practical Electronics 1975, July. And he called it the Gristleizer. Now this Gristleizer has sort of evolved over time into different things, into different places. People have tried to copy it, and the schematics for it have indeed been available for free for many years. But now, working with Future Sound Systems, Chris Carter and Roy Gwynn have got together to reinvent it as a bunch of Eurorack modules. And these are all looking pretty darn evil. There's the generator, which is sort of an LFO, which can also be pushed up into the audible range, so giving us some pretty fierce little bass lines. There's a filter, which does the filtering thing. And then there's the modulator, which is kind of a VCA with a whole load of character and drive and distortion and stuff going on. I mean, suffice to say that the whole thing together is just full of character and noise and grit and fierceness and intention and boldness and balls, I think it's probably the right word. Alongside it, they've also added a preamplifier because the original Gristleizer was mostly used on guitar, and so they wanted to provide a decent input for more than just Eurorack sources. And so there's a preamp module as well for guitar and line, and that has a load of nasty stuff in there as well. It was announced at Modular Meets in Leeds last weekend, where Chris Carter actually did a rather interesting live performance. Although I took a little bit of video of it and I found that it sounded a lot better outside. But what was interesting was that he used a very sort of comfortingly small Eurorack setup, which kind of gives hope to everybody really, that it doesn't have to be this enormous range of stuff, and actually you can do pretty cool stuff with something quite small. Over in the world of the Surface, I have finished my exhausting performance testing on the new Surface Pro 2017. Yay! I've posted the video up. I managed to edit it down to almost an hour, but it's packed full of information featuring audio testing with DAW bench, with projects, with virtual instruments, polyphony testing, playing instruments live, how well they stack up, how well they layer, the sort of latency that you're going to get, and also talking about thermal issues and CPU stability, which was quite interesting. But hopefully, along with the musical projects that I was running, it will give you a fair idea of what, for crying out loud, hopefully it will give you an idea of the sort of performance that you could get if you decided to go that route. But the short answer is, yeah, it's pretty good, but go and check it out. Uh-oh, what's this? This is my second row. Oh yes, I have spilled now into a second row, and what is going to become of me? What are my children going to eat this Christmas? I don't know, but I will have videos coming up on that adventure very soon. I'd also like to give a big shout out to Alex at Rubberdub, who was there at Modular Meets.
Hello, I'm Alex from Rubberdub.
Over the weekend, who spent a very, very long time explaining the Make Noise shared system to me. It was brilliant. They had one there and it was touchy-feely and understanding things about wobble bugs and renes and herbiverbs and the CV bus system which sits in the middle. It was awesome. And he gave me a lot of time, and I really appreciate it because my mind has been expanded and I understand a lot more about the nature of Make Noise modules, I think, and what it is they're trying to do, the way they're trying to build an instrument. They're trying to get the creativity of it across rather than the engineering side of it across. Yeah, I found that very interesting indeed. And I think perhaps I might need another row. Anyway, that'll do. Thanks for watching. Lots more goodies to come. As always, I have a little bit of finishing off to do on my Bitwig review. I've got a lot of modular stuff coming up, and I'll be doing all sorts of Surface videos on different DAWs, different bits of software, and how you use them. There's no end to it. At least I hope not. And in the meantime, go and make some tunes.